It says I'm live. It says I'm live. Hey, YouTube, it's Cyclone, and I am going to have the stream open for a while. But first, I'm going to get a little bit more coffee. And then I'll just be here. I will be back, and we'll get to discussing. Okay. So, it looks like no one's here yet, but I'll keep the stream going and basically just talk about the series from where I want it to go about part 9. So, just to preface this, and of course, spoilers for the whole part 8 JoJo series. All parts will be up for discussion, of course. We're talking about a part that hasn't even come out yet, right? Now, we know about JoJo Lands. I believe that's the name for part 9. So if someone jumps in, of course, I'll be happy to have a discussion with said person. But so be it. Still have fun discussing the series. And of course, we can leave a comment if you're watching this after the live stream goes up. Leave a comment, get a discussion going. These are open forums for discourse. I want people to have fun talking about the series and come up with some cool ideas. So, JoJo Lands. Now, the most natural way to start is to talk about part 8 and then part 7, and then think about where JoJo Lands might be going. The thing about this is I want to look at where we are versus like the original series. We know that part 8 is somewhat of a fusion between, you could argue, parts 4 and 5. There is a like corrupt group of people trying to take over the world, and you then kind of have a mystery story, and instead of the villain's mystery, it's the hero's mystery. And then you have this idea of La Familia or family. I feel like part 5 is a lot more cohesive and tells a better story and has much better villains than part 8. But part 8 goes more into the identity mystery story, like who am I? What's my purpose in life? And then what are the forces in the world? Calamity and flow. And I want to talk about flow today, a theme that definitely needs more clarification and discussion and development by Iraqi. We have this concept of flow in part 8, whereas in part 7, we had the spin and destiny, right? So, hell, let's go back to part 6. If you want to get, typical, forget, I've already warned you plenty of times, but if you're an anime only, leave this video right now. I'm warning you. Part 6, universe reset. Pucci erases the known universe and resets it. There is something that has to do with spin there. Because what Pucci was doing in part 6 was he was spinning gravity so fast, universally, that he basically collapsed the universe and recreated a Big Bang from it through his stand. Now, the power and the force of the gravity, to my understanding, it basically returns the universe to the way it was, but people know their fate. They're born into this world having memories of their future, basically. Like they know what's going to happen to them. They know what their fate is. They know, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire, or I'm going to be poor, or, oh, I'm going to be like, oh, tomorrow. They'll basically have knowledge of their futures, almost like giving people the power of Diavolo, knowing their fate, knowing their destiny, and living in harmony with themselves, so that in Pucci's mind, they don't corrupt his ideal universe, right? They don't have ambition. Basically, Pucci was trying to devoid people of their own ambitions. That was finding heaven, right? However, this act, and we see it through the sun spinning faster than light, like vroom, vroom, vroom. The point was there was a spin. And if you look in the universe, spinning is a very important physical property. Electrons spin around atoms. Planets spin around stars. Galaxies spin around a black hole or a large mass of a star. This is a property of existence in our universe. Spin, gravity. This whole idea that this is the absolute principle of reality, the universe. The spin in part 7 replaced the concept of, no, it didn't. It was a new form of like Hamon. Hamon takes energy from a star. But the spin is literally the universe's power in the palm of your hand, the power of spin, infinite spin, right? You're basically the star yourself. And whatever is around you will start spinning ad nauseum forever and ever. Now, the arrow was replaced by the concept of the corpse parts. Now, we know that Jesus was probably either A stand user, or B, a stand. I've heard both theories. But Jesus blessed the earth with this power that Valentine acquired and misused. But this whole idea that there is science and biblical connotations established in part 7 shows that we are working in a universe that has both supernatural and laws of physics properties, that there's power in both areas. And you see that science and religion, if you use them properly, can work together. One can help you morally, the other can help you mentally. There's this idea that finding balance is the way to go. Because if you abuse, for example, the hubris for Valentine was that he abused his moral rights. He abused the power he was given. He mistreated others. And he was a man of results in science, in a way. His stand power has to do with dimensionality. He himself is not even his own person anymore. So he is talking about interdimensional travel and changing his own moral code, his own moral core to get power. So his moral, spiritual self is paper thin. Johnny is trying to follow this path of enlightenment in a way. But you might argue he lost the race because he was somewhat of a blind follower. He would follow his gut to the very end. And while technically he won, ultimately he got to the corpse parts, we know that in part 8, he had to sacrifice himself. He followed his ambitions to his grave because maybe he wasn't looking at the whole picture and was a little bit too narrow-sighted. And Johnny was somewhat stubborn and somewhat narrow-sighted. We saw that in his personality in part 7. And we know that the Jonathan of the Joestar family is doomed to fail. Like, that's the character. Part 1, Jonathan. Part 7, Jonathan. They both basically failed in the end. With part 8, we know that their part 4 connection probably means that it's irrelevant to the grand scheme of what part 9 will be, although I would be very hopeful that rock people and maybe the Rorakara fruit or Rokakaka, the Roro fruit, could be expanded upon. Because it comes from it comes from New Guinea, I think, right? And it's in like the jungle. And it's alluded to it being a very ancient fruit. Again, I think there has a tie to the Garden of Eden. There's this idea of the Garden of Eden. Araki illustrates Adam and Eve in one of those panels about the rock people. It just screams Adam and Eve to me. So this is where I'm getting into my part 9 analysis. Are we going to an oasis, a biblical place like the Garden of Eden? Are we going on an adventure to find Eden? Because Araki is alluding to these sacred locations. And what could possibly be more sacred than Eden? The garden of life itself. Mankind. Stands. Morality. This is where Eden would make so much sense. The Devil's Palms are places of curses. We have the shrines in Moriel, part 8. We have these ideas that there's places on the earth that are just seeped in either curse or spirituality. But Eden is probably the most sacred land of all. And what if Adam and Eve were the first stand users and the snake was the temptress of power, right? What if that was the idea, that the snake was coercing people into doing its bidding? What if the snake was the first stand and it corrupted Adam and Eve? There's a lot of symbolism here. The rock people could have been one sect from Eden, and then humanity could have been another. And then the rock people got ignored, and they got neglected, and they lost out in a lot of their history to modernization. They held a lot in prehistoric time, but then, of course, mankind modernizes as they're stuck in stone and passes them. If we learn that rock people at one point held the advantage and had empires, maybe Alexander the Great was a rock, maybe Genghis Khan was a rock person, and then like the terracotta warriors, there's this symbolism about the terracotta warriors. In China, they have a shrine that was protecting the empire, and I think it's hundreds, maybe even thousands of stone soldiers underground That's exactly a depiction of the rock people. The rock people, these soldiers of an empire. What was the rock empire? Can we get the rock empire in part 9? Imagine where the rock humans originated, their first kingdom. You could call it Jerusalem, you could call it whatever. But another thing that was very interesting to me is that Lucy became very petrified. Didn't she look a little bit like stone? Was Jesus a rock human? This is what we need to learn. If Jesus was a rock human, he could have become stone on the crucifix, right? Maybe he survived without eating, without drinking. Maybe that was the whole idea. And I don't think Iraqi confirmed that Jesus was a rock person. He showed, what was weird about part 8 is he showed like Kiss or Hermes and like, was it Lisa? The first series, there were rock people in the original universe. We also don't know for certain where this current universe lies compared to the original. Is this the reset universe post in Pucci and Emporio? Or is this an alternate universe? Completely. It's still not 100% clear. We know that part 6, Jolene, in the reset universe, looks very similar. She's a different person mentally, spiritually, but she is still Jolene in a sense. She looks just like Jolene, whereas part 7, Jonathan, is totally different from part 1. And that's why I think I'm on the camp that this is a totally alternate universe. Knowing that D4C can travel through any dimension that it wants between two surfaces, basically, means that it could be almost infinite, right? We think that Valentine had access to infinite dimensions that were similar to his. Remember, he said as long as the dimensions were similar, he could travel between them. And then they talked about the sponge theory, where the two holes would overlap and he could travel through them. Well, that's, again, an alternate universe. It can't be a completely separate dimension. It still has to have laws of gravity, laws of physics, life. It still has to have all of these things. But part 9, it really needs to hammer in what this timeline is, in my opinion. We know Jesus is here. We have allusion to Adam and Eve. We have images of that. So it looks like a universe that has more of the history of real life, in a way. Morio was hit by a tsunami in 2011. It was based on real life. The original series had no connection to real life at all. Like, we have vampires, the mask. We have allusions to Christianity in Pucci. But nothing is really screaming our world in the first series. But in this series, we have literal biblical historical reference. And it's interesting that that's the case. Let's talk about the characters of part 9. Iraqi, while he's very creative, also tends to do similar structure. Again, Johnny, this time though he threw in Josuke second, and in a way, Kira and Josuke second. He brought part 4 up front, probably because, let's be real, he's not doing another 6 parts. So part 4 acts like a medium, a middle part. It acts like a kind of a slice of life in the middle of the chaos. And I do agree part 8 did that. My favorite part about part 8, quite frankly, was the pacing was very good. Even if I didn't love the story as much and the villains, The pacing was pretty damn good, right? We got through stuff. There wasn't a lot of backtracking. We got through stuff. Fights never lasted more than, I think it was 2 chapters was the longest fight, except Wonder of You, which, oh God, let's not even talk about more. One thing about part 9. Let's start with my biggest concern, the villains. The villains, whatever you want to do with the villains. Let's reflect it to what remaining characters we have from the original series. Part 3, Jotaro. Joseph, maybe. And there's actually a theory, if we are going to biblical sort of parameters, Joseph, come on. Like, Joseph is the biblical figure of the original cast. So Joseph finding Jesus or Eden, there is so much here. And even Joseph's hermit purple in this alternate universe, it has a physical presence and it looks like a human wrapped in vines. There is so much symbolism here to a Garden of Eden. I really want it, to be quite frank. But if it's Joseph, I just hope there's some biblical exploration, right? Historical, cultural, ancient civilizations. Indiana Jones. Let's go. Temple Hunter. Fine. Like, you want JoJo Lands to be about him being Indiana Jones? I'm all in. Like, let's go. Let's go find the relics. Let's go find the ancient civilizations, the treasures. Let's go. A real adventure. Because part 8 was not really an adventure. That's honestly why I don't love the slice of life as much. If I'm watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, it needs the adventure part. I need to go places. I need to see different places. That, to me, is an adventure. But going on a bus and fighting a wind stand is not an adventure to me. And like running away from zombies through a city is not really an adventure to me, quite frankly, especially given the fact that the city is literally there for just being a backdrop. There's no significance to being there other than it being a backdrop. That was also my problem with part 8 is the hospital should have been way more focused on throughout the part, not just the beginning and the end. Remind us that the hospital is where everything matters. Like, running around the city didn't do anything. Like, going to the hospital mattered. So I hope the villain for this part is, I want to know who this villain is for sure by the first third of the story. And I don't want it to change. I don't want to go to some other person. I want to know who the antagonist is. If we're looking at part 7 and 8, we know the Devil's Palm is a very important place. Cursed land. The corpse parts are very important. There is a chance that the villain of this part could be Judas. Or some ancient ruler, some emperor, somebody who was tied to the time of Jesus. Can you imagine if, who the hell was, I'd have to, actually, I can go wiki this. Let's look at, well, of course we have Chinese empires. Let's start there, right? Chinese empires. Here we go. Do we have oh yes, perfect. Largest empires. Of course, the British is number 1. People might not realize that. (176 BC), we had the Xiongnu Empire. Let's see. I'm trying to look for empires near the time of Christ. The Han Dynasty, the Western Han Dynasty. Okay, so, all right. Yeah, ancient China. What else? Oh, the Jin Dynasty. Okay. Okay. What else? Anything else like within a 50-year period? Zhongyu and Ji Dynasty. Yeah. Anything else? Not Asian? Probably not, because, I mean, we had, we had Egypt, Parthian Empire. The Iranian Empire was literally at the time of Jesus. The Parni tribe. The Indo-Scythian kingdom. This was near India and Central Asia. Iran, basically out of Iran. The hell's that noise? Oh, it's, I think, someone's car outside. Let's see. And actually, it's getting a little dark in here, isn't it? Put a little bit more light on the sub. Let's see how do I look. You can see me cool. All right. Let's see. That's a little too long past. Oh, the Inca Empire. That was very more recent. No, Zhongyu and Ji Empire in China. I'm saying if there's anything more, Middle Eastern, more around Jerusalem and the like, because I'm wondering if the villain could be tied to Jesus in part 9, right? That's still a little too far. I'm just going through a little bit. Not really. So we had, a little bit of activity in Iran, a little bit in China, well, a lot in China, but that's kind of it. I mean, if we're going to go to the time of Jesus and some evil empire, then the villain has to be some form of ancient conqueror who probably has a stand that increases his lifespan. Because here's the one thing, Jesus' stand blesses people who collect his corpse, and Jesus died for sins in the tradition, right? But the villain, if you're going to tie it to Jesus, should be selfish, clearly, not wanting to die, to cast sin upon the world. And that would be part 9's villain should have that level of influence, in my opinion. So, hell, make a crusader in the name of Alexander the Great. Maybe he was a rock human who has a stand that keeps him alive for thousands of years. Or maybe it is someone from ancient China. Can you imagine if Iraqi does an ancient Chinese theme? Oh, that would be amazing. The Great Wall, the battle against the Mongolians. I mean, bro, we could go really into the past with this part. But seeing as we have Joseph possibly being the main character of this next part, and honestly, if you want to make Joseph and Jotaro the main characters for this part, or you could do Joseph and Jolene, grandfather, granddaughter. And Jotaro could be somehow thrown in there as well. Because if we want to skip this ahead in the future, the other thing I thought of is, what if this was a post-apocalyptic story? Remember, JoJo's was based on Fist of the North Star. So if this goes into the future, post-apocalyptic setting, where the stands are the only thing that you have to save yourself with, and then finding people to follow you. Wow, what a plot, what an idea that would be. Very, very cool stuff. But at the end of the day, I still want the themes of part 9 to tie to what part 7 set up. I want the spin to be something that they're trying to look for. Maybe you can give your stand the spin, not just like Tusk Act 4, but maybe any stand can learn the spin, and that could make your power so much crazier. We saw it with Soft and Wet, even though it was kind of I did not love that finale, but it still stands that you can enhance your stand with the spin. That is the idea. Like, imagine if Paisley Park had the spin. Like, it could literally spin navigation. Like, it could spin your direction around. Like, something nuts. Can you imagine if it could do that? Like, spin your world around, like redirect, change the direction of a compass or something, like some crazy power with the spin. So I want the spin to be very much a part of this next act. Part 9 has to look at the spin, and it really has to apply to stands. I think that would be huge. The villain should be a selfish prick who has found a way to live for thousands of years. Maybe his stand uses the spin to keep him alive or something like that. Maybe he can spin his DNA to stay alive longer. I don't know. But there are things that I think could really benefit Part 9. And the rock people, again, I would love the villain, if it is a rock person, to be fully understood and fleshed out, and possibly an ancient figure like Alexander the Great, or even earlier, some of the ancient Chinese emperors. If we're going that direction, that would be amazing. Joseph and Jotaro or Jolene as your protagonist, something in the main line. Again, with Johnny cursing Mario, Joseph trying to figure things out with the fruit. This ties things, in my opinion, to finding the source of the fruit, but also probably the spin. And that should go to Eden. And if Eden is a wasteland or an oasis in a wasteland, a post-apocalyptic wasteland, whatever Araki wants to do with that, I'm really excited for the prospect of that. Now, I would say Part 9, also, I need the action to kind of go back to basics here. Part 8's fights were pretty terrible, in my humble opinion. I just did not like Part 8 fights. First of all, they weren't even really fights. A lot of them were just like, how can I get away from this stand? Like, it's chasing me through the city, through this, through that. How can I outsmart the stand? And it's like, this strategy stuff, like, it works in Hunter x Hunter, but not with, like, stand battles. There's so much more of a visual medium, in my opinion, that it's like they need to visually impress. They need to be a visual spectacle. I hope the Part 9 goes back to fighting strategy, combat abilities, more so than a stand that can chase you through a city. And perhaps the flow. I forgot to talk about the flow. But if the stands in Part 9 utilize the spin, maybe there's really trying to find the flow. The flow that controls things like the spin, like time and lifespan. The flow of destiny and calamity. All of this is the flow of time, space, and time in the universe. So, again, the flow, the spin, and the fruit all seem to be kind of going into this concept that this is where life began. This is where humanity began. And Joseph, Jotaro, maybe Jolene, the main line, is trying to figure out what started this whole crusade. Now, if we look, interestingly enough, if we go back to Rome and Italy, that's where our boy came from. Zappelli, man. It's just like the spin comes from the Mediterranean. Mr. Zappelli, and I just want to double check where he's from. Let me actually go to his. I should go to his page, shouldn't I? Yeah, that would help. Okay, I'm done. I forgot this. Oh, my mind is racing now. Oh, my mind is racing now. My mind is racing now. His birth name is Julius Caesar Zappelli. Let's go. The Roman Empire. Jesus, the Roman, it's all coming together. Okay, Iraqi. Okay, man, listen. Don't play with me right now, my man. The Roman Empire. He was, yes. Julius freaking Caesar. Not the fact that Gyro is named Julius Caesar, but Julius Caesar, the dictator. Holy shit. He was, right, 100 years before Christ's execution. But what if Julius Caesar is alive? What if Julius Caesar can live forever? Now I'm looking at Julius Caesar right now and looking up some of his history. This is, I forgot that his first name was Julius Caesar. I'm sorry, but in talking about this whole idea, this is just like JoJo's Part 9. The spin came from Rome. Jesus, Rome, the spin. Like, shit, the flow. We know that the flow is what, like, Jesus' stand clearly uses the flow. It flows calamity or misfortune away. And people theorize that when Jesus used it, he probably absorbed all of this and he flowed it into himself. But Valentine was deflecting it towards other locations and possibly other countries, thematically sending America's misfortunes elsewhere, right? So America could benefit. But I now want to look up the Roman Empire because now my mind is fucking racing. I just want to quickly read about Gyro. Okay. Okay. Wait. Yeah, okay. Not really. I'm going to go look up Julius Caesar. We have Brutus and Cassius, right? Constitutional government of the Republic was never fully restored. Great nephew, Augustus, rose to power after defeating his opponents in the last civil war of the Roman Republic. Caesar was an accomplished author and historian. Right. Dude, like, Julius Caesar being a rock person would be amazing. Thematically, we think of the Roman Empire as an empire in stone, right? Stone walls, stone temples. We think about all of this. The fact that the Romans could be the rock people because they don't believe in Jesus, they believe in other gods. Like, the mind is fucking racing here. Remember, because of Jesus, his influence spread to the Roman Empire post Caesar's reign, and Catholicism just became the norm, right? But it wasn't originally that way. They were devout to the Roman gods, the Greek gods, Olympus. But like, well, now my mind is just racing right now. I might not find anything here, but I think it's still worth a quick read because anything that I could possibly tie to JoJo's, right? I mean, it's a long shot, but I mean, the fact that we have this in here, come on. Okay. Okay. I'm just looking. I'm looking. Imperator. Okay. Pompey filled the city with soldiers. Okay. Aristocracy, the government of province held political allies. The Lex Vatinia. Okay. Over. Okay. Pompey was added. Bro. There's something about this. Remember, part 5, we're in Rome, and we had a character like Diavolo who was all about like seeing your destiny and fate and literally securing it, like a conqueror, right? That theme, like I'm telling you that. He's also a militant with a lot of conquering experience. I'm just seeing if there's anything that might have something to do with what JoJo's could be going for here. Okay. Wait. Right. So when Caesar conquered the Middle East in 48 BC, right? He was in Egypt. We know how important Egypt is. He annihilated the king of Pontus. He mocked him because how easy the victory was. He visited Tarsus. But this is where the plot began to kill him. He proceeded to Africa, but he was defeated by Titus Labienus at Ruspina. But then he recovered his forces and went to conquer Thapsus. He was appointed dictator for 10 years. Battle of Munda. And those defeated in civil war had not been foreigners, but instead fellow Romans. He filed his will. He left a substantial gift to the citizens of Rome, right? But through conquest and war and conquering, right? Jeez. And just before, I just gotta check something. All right, I have to just do something quickly, guys. There we go. I just gotta look up something quick. Check the stream. Okay. Ooh, I could do that. Maybe. Maybe not. No, I'm gonna do that. Just give me a couple minutes, guys. Okay, got it. All right. So, I think we kind of have an idea here. Okay. But I got to tell you, like the Romans built stone monuments, statues, empires. They built tons of stuff. Makes perfect sense. Pompeii, the people frozen in ash. There's these themes about stone, solid, strong, and this idea that it's conquering. And then the fact that the rock people in part 8 are a mafia, were they Italian? Were they actually Italian? Because if they're actually Italian, and then I'm seeing these themes like, okay, part 9, if you bring in Julius Caesar, I'll be ready. I'll be right here. I'm going to be doing live reactions to every chapter that comes out, and just go crazy. That is exactly the type of storytelling I want for part 9. Something of that scale, something of that implication. I want part 9 to focus on a significant figure, a significant story, something that impacts the world, not just the general plot of the scene, of the location. I want a global level plot, and perhaps even bigger. The other thing we have to think about is the flow and its impact on the villain's power, because both villains have now used the flow in different ways. So it's clear that I feel like the flow of time is just inevitable. You could say that, it's just kind of a cop-out. It's Dio again, part 3, part 9, boo-hoo. But by flow of time, I mean, what if he has agency over time in a way that he can make himself younger or older, or he can make others older, or whatever it is. Like, what if he can gain memories of other people, kind of like part 6, because he can live his future memories in his present body, or he can review his past and the pasts of others and their futures. What if he basically has a flow of everybody's memories and of experiences, like Epitaph on steroids? Or it's a flow of fate, because Julius Caesar was a conqueror. But perhaps because of his rock human nature, he got stuck and couldn't see through to the end. And the fact that he was assassinated in history, you go to, what if the character in part 9 is assassinated? Wow. The revenge plot there, like he wants to revenge. Maybe Julius Caesar, a rock human, was assassinated by a regular human. Oh, this is getting spicy. This is getting really spicy. Okay. Part 9, please. Araki, don't let me down, man. Don't let me down. Now, the thing is, we still have the idea that Joseph and the Bible, if we're getting into like ancient Rome and Jesus, like all of this stuff kind of happens around that century. Like Julius Caesar was killed not even 50 years before Jesus was killed. In fact, when exactly was he assassinated? 44 BC. Was Jesus up to 44 years old when he was assassinated, when he was crucified? They might have been alive at the same time. I don't actually think I would know. Well, actually, because it's vague, but Wikipedia. So what do they say? Well, I don't know if he was. Hang on. I don't know if Islam or Christianity is bigger these days. It's debatable. It says it's the world's largest. I thought Islam was, but what do I know? Because again, you think about all the villages in like, India and Pakistan and all those other places. However, if most of Asia is Christian, then there's Buddhist, there's Confucianism. Is that still around? Taoist. Okay. Right. The quest for the historical Jesus, right? So, how old do they claim he was? Okay. Let's see. I could probably just Google search his age. Right? Couldn't I just do that? So much easier. $33 to 36 years. So no, not quite. Not quite. Well, no, because Caesar was assassinated before that time. So okay, but it was close. The idea is that it's in roughly the same era. So wow, can you imagine if we're going to like Rome, and you could then mix like part 5 and part 3 and a little bit of part 6 with the religion, and tie up part 7 and a little bit of part 8 with part 9. Like, oh, wow. I'm just getting really excited about this. Still have no live viewers. It is a Sunday, but I'm going to stay on, as long as I can here. We're only not even an hour in, so, but this is going to be good for the channel to have. It's a good discussion video. That's why I'm doing it. So anyone can talk in the comments. I can't, like, if that's where we're going, I'm really excited. Out freaking Julius Caesar, okay? Oh, I'd love it. I would love it so much. Oh, it would be so good. Right. The spin is like Hamon's ripple. Exactly. It's a new form of the ripple. Which it's amazing. The ripple can freaking break through flow because it broke through Love Train. Like technically, it also broke through Wonder of You. So the ripple here is way, way more powerful than just some dimensionality ability or even time manipulation in a sense. Although, like Frozen Time, we know that against Diego, he was still very wary of the rotation. Like when he stopped time, like he was still keeping his distance. He didn't want to get near it. And when he did get near it, he had a plan to throw his leg back at Johnny. That was, bro, that ending to this day, the fact that Diego won the race, I freaking, no, Poco Loco? I am forgetting. I thought Diego won and Poco Loco got second, and then Diego died, so Poco Loco is like the victor by chance. I don't remember exactly. All I know is that he beat Johnny. That the way that the spin was used against him was just classic, amazing. But right, I want to see if there's anything else about the spin. Right, Kingdom of Naples. It is used there for medicine or for battle, right? Because you can heal the body with it, but you also would use the steel balls in a duel. So, right. An infinite amount of energy. Dude. Dude, the golden rectangle, I mean, the basic, right? But the mastered level, right, right. The fact of the matter is, the spin itself is incredible, but to really utilize it, one still has to be very skilled at throwing an object because that's how you have to hit the target correctly to get the right result. Either you want to help, you can heal. Like remember when you used to spin on the horse? That was fucking nuts. But you can also then kill somebody with it clearly, and you can trap them in an infinitely rotating physical existence. Oh, it's crazy, man. Right. You must have a sphere will create the perfect spin because it's like a galaxy. It's a similar idea. A round spin for a round object, right? And gravity moves in a circular motion. Gravity doesn't move in a square, it moves in a circle. That's a property of the universe, right? Okay. Trying to see anything else about spin. Right. Spin is partially taking control of projectile. Right. Okay. Dude. If Joseph knows the ripple in part 1, hello. Does Joseph, and I forget, part 8, does he know the spin? Oh. Hang on. Hermit purple with the spin. Now, what would that mean? What would hermit purple with the spin mean? Because if we have the spin on hermit purple, it creates vines. Could he shoot the thorns out of his vines like the spin? Or could he spin his vines in a spiral motion and a twisted vine is a circle. Oh. Okay. Huh. Or maybe he also uses steel balls. Because if you think about it, well, actually, what's interesting, if we're talking about Julius Caesar or the Roman Empire, it's likely that the villain would use the spin, the steel balls. And then how do you counter the spin if the enemy is using it? Do you have to use the flow? Are we going to get flow versus spin? Or this is where part 9 can be incredible. If the themes can be tied together and we start seeing how the spin and flow can be used and interact. It's clear that we have spin and flow, but we saw the spin beating flow literally just now in part 8 when spin, because it didn't physically exist, went through Wonder of View's barrier of calamity and pursuit. And so that barrier is a form of flow, just like Love Train was a flow, a way to use flow, right? The spin bypassed flow. In my opinion, spin is more powerful than flow at this point in time. But maybe the flow can be evolved to a level where it changes the rectangle or some shit. Can you flow a spin a different way? Could you reverse the spin? What would happen with a reverse spin? Would it make you more powerful? These are things that would be amazing to see. I hope Araki goes to this level and he gets that creative. I don't want it to just be, bad guy wants to take over the world and he has a power that allows him to spread calamity through the land with an army stand. A stand like Julius Caesar has an army stand. It's just a bunch of fucking soldiers and he can conquer lands with it. And they're made of rock, so they're hard to destroy. If that's his power, for example, the stand should have the properties of the spin or the flow. So far, the villains have used flow and the heroes have used spin. But if we reverse it, maybe Julius Caesar has a way to use the spin, and the hero is going to use flow. Joseph. Man, Araki, please. The evidence is pointing to a focus around the time of Jesus. And if it just goes somewhere completely different, I will have felt a little bit robbed, to be quite frank. I hope part 9 does focus on OBC, 1 BC, OBC, right at that time. I hope that the pursuit of power comes from that era. The corpse parts, I want them to be relevant in part 9. Doesn't necessarily have to be the most important thing, but I want them to be relevant to part 9. Shit. This part, honestly, has extreme potential to be outstanding. I think part 8 was like a necessary evil because it was way less relevant to the world of the part 7. Like part 7 was the world, the history, the lore, the moral conflict. And then part 8 is like, who am I? Oh, bad people doing bad things. Like, man, part 9 has to bring that scale back where like the world is at fucking stake. The ambitions are global and we really see that ambition being used. And we see the impact of a Julius Caesar, rock human Julius Caesar, or whatever the hell he wants to do. Holy shit. Anything goes into the future, it might be Jolene. Full circle. But JoJo lands, again, to me, it implicates a lot of adventure, or it's a land that is devoid of a lot of life. It could be post-apocalyptic. I am leaning towards a higher adventure style, like part 3, but then it could have elements of the Bible part, past history in a future setting, perhaps. And that's huge to me because seeing history impact the present or a more modern setting is always fascinating. It's a great writing choice. It's a great theme to lean on. You see how the actions today are impacted by the past. Why would a character's motivations be what they are? Because of the past and that lingering desire to achieve something. In this case, if Julius Caesar was assassinated by a regular human and he's a rock person, my gosh, we have the actual motivations for the rock people, why they hate humans so much, because they're from Julius Caesar's empire. The stone statues, it just writes its freaking self. I'm telling you. Iraqi should go that distance, and I hope he does. I hope we get that part of Iraqi. I hope he doesn't shy away from the challenge of writing these crazy characters and these rock humans and this whole thing. I hope he goes that far. I don't want him to hold back. Part 9, make it massive, make it huge, make it insane. I think I have exhausted my brain. I have talked about everything I could think of for part 9. And I think thematically, I've laid out what my hopes are. It would be amazing if it's tied to the time of Jesus, but also with the Roman Empire being featured, possibly the rock humans being betrayed by humans back then, like Julius Caesar was assassinated. Something about that. You have the idea of flow coming from Jesus, the spin coming from the empire of Julius Caesar, and the two powers being featured in part 9. Could the villain use the spin and the hero could be Joseph, could be Jotaro or Jolene, alternate universe. Could they use the flow? This is, oh man, the implications. This part could be nuts. Please, Iraqi, don't let us down. I'll see you guys around. Comment, talk about the series, post your ideas. Let's see what other people are saying. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Take care, everybody.